As I sat in my cozy living room surrounded by balls of colorful yarn, I never could have imagined the journey that lay ahead of me. It all started with a routine checkup at the doctor's office, where I received news that would forever change my life. When life gives you needles, what do? I decided to pick up my knitting needles and face my cancer diagnosis head-on. It was a crisp, sunny morning, and I had just won first prize at the local community fair for my intricately patterned shawl, a riot of colors and textures that seemed to capture the judges' hearts. My spirits were soaring as I clutched the blue ribbon, the weight of my achievement a delightful burden in my hands. But life has a way of weaving unexpected patterns, and the vibrant hues of my triumph were soon to be overshadowed by a much darker thread. Only a few days after the fair, I found myself sitting in a stark, sterile room at the doctor's office, the antiseptic smell a sharp contrast to the comforting scent of wool and dye that clung to my clothes. I was there for what I had assumed would be a routine checkup, a simple pause in my day before I could return to my world of yarns and needles. However, as the doctor's words tumbled out, time seemed to slow to a crawl. "You have cancer," he said, his voice a somber melody that clashed with the rhythms of my life. In that moment, my world didn't just shatter, it unraveled, stitch by painstaking stitch. The shock of the diagnosis left me numb, a specter in my own life, wandering through the days that followed with a heavy heart. The laughter and joy of the fair seemed a distant memory, replaced by the cold reality of my situation. Yet, in the midst of this turmoil, my gaze would often settle on my knitting basket, the skeins of yarn and unfinished projects a silent testament to a life filled with creativity and warmth. It was in this state of upheaval that I began to understand the true resilience of the human spirit. Despite the fear and uncertainty, I felt a flicker of defiance, a refusal to be defined by my diagnosis. The world had shifted beneath my feet, but as I reached for my knitting needles, I realized that my story was far from over. This was not the end of my tapestry, but perhaps the beginning of a new, more profound pattern. In the aftermath of my diagnosis, the world seemed to spin with a frenzied pace, leaving me grappling for something, anything, to anchor me to a semblance of my former life. That anchor presented itself in the most familiar and comforting form I knew: knitting. As I sat in my favorite chair, a soft beacon of sunlight streaming through the window and caressing my face, I reached for my knitting basket with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since the day of my diagnosis. The act of picking up my needles, the cool smoothness of them in my hands, was like greeting an old friend, a reminder of countless peaceful hours spent transforming yarn into something beautiful. The rhythm of knitting, the methodical click of the needles, and the soft whisper of yarn sliding through my fingers, became my meditation, my solace in the chaos that cancer had wrought upon my life. Each stitch was a moment of calm in the storm, a step on the path to acceptance and peace. I found comfort in the predictability of the patterns, the knowledge that if I followed the steps, I would create something whole and complete. It was a stark contrast to the unpredictability of cancer, a journey with no clear pattern or outcome. This time spent in the familiar embrace of knitting allowed me to gather my strength, to fortify my spirit for the journey ahead. It was a quiet rebellion against the uncertainty of my future, a declaration that despite the tumult, I could still create, still bring beauty into the world. The simple act of knitting became a profound source of healing, a way to stitch together the frayed edges of my life. In those moments, with needles in hand and yarn flowing like a river of potential, I was more than my diagnosis. I was a creator, a warrior, a survivor. And in the soft, comforting folds of each finished piece, I found not only solace but a profound sense of hope. The familiar had offered me a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink with the gentle, persistent tug of each stitch. On an otherwise ordinary afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun danced across my knitting needles, a revelation struck me with the force of a lightning bolt. I was midway through another scarf, the yarn a brilliant shade of emerald that reminded me of the vibrancy of life outside my window. My hands moved mechanically, weaving the yarn into familiar patterns, but my heart wasn't in it. It felt as though I was knitting just to pass the time, to keep my fingers busy while my mind wandered through the maze of my diagnosis. But in that moment of reflection, an idea as bright and bold as the yarn itself illuminated my thoughts. Why should I knit only for myself when there were so many out there who could benefit from the comfort and warmth of a handmade creation? The thought blossomed like a flower in spring, filling me with a warmth that radiated from within. I imagined sick children in hospital beds, their days filled with treatments and tests, devoid of the simple joys that childhood should bring. What if I could knit a little happiness into their lives? What if my hobby could bring them even a moment's respite from their battles? The idea was transformative. Suddenly, the act of knitting took on a new dimension. It wasn't just about yarn and patterns anymore, it was about hope, love, and the gentle touch of compassion. I envisioned crafting plush toys, each stitch imbued with positive thoughts and well wishes, and cozy blankets to offer a hug when I could not. The more I thought about it, the more my spirit lifted. I was no longer just an elderly woman with cancer. I was a bearer of light, a giver of comfort. This epiphany didn't just mark a shift in my knitting journey, it redefined my fight against cancer. With each piece I planned, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't merely battling my own illness, I was knitting a shield of care and support for others facing their own struggles. The spark of inspiration that lit up that afternoon transformed not just my outlook on life but paved a path of giving and healing I was eager to follow. With a heart full of determination and my knitting needles at the ready, embarking on my new mission injected a newfound vibrancy into my life. It wasn't just about battling my own cancer anymore, it was about using my passion to light up the lives of others facing their own dark times. Diving into this project, I meticulously selected patterns and yarns, each choice more colorful and softer than the last, imagining the smiles they would bring to children enduring the unimaginable. I transformed my cozy living room into a workshop of hope. Skeins of yarn in every hue imaginable spilled from baskets, and half-finished toys began to populate the nooks and crannies of my space, each one a beacon of comfort in the making. As my hands worked tirelessly, I poured every ounce of my love and positive energy into the stitches, crafting plush toys that would offer cuddles and blankets that would wrap young warriors in warmth during their battles in the oncology ward. The process was meditative, my needles clicking in a soothing rhythm that calmed my mind and soothed my spirit. With every piece I finished, I felt a piece of my burden lifting. It was as if with each stitch, I was knitting together my own frayed edges, finding healing in the act of giving. Preparing to deliver my first batch of knitted goods, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Would these small tokens make a difference? The answer came in the bright eyes and wide smiles of the children as I handed out my creations. Their joy was palpable, radiating through the room and igniting a flame of happiness in my heart. This journey wasn't just about providing a bit of comfort to those in need, it was transforming me. With each project, I was not only knitting for a cause but knitting myself back together, finding strength and purpose in the midst of my own struggle. Walking into the oncology ward with a basket filled to the brim with my latest batch of knitted toys and blankets, my stomach was aflutter with nerves and anticipation. Each step was a leap of faith, a hope that these small tokens of my love and labor could bring a moment of happiness to these brave young souls facing battles far beyond their years. The moment I laid the knitted goods on the communal table, curious eyes lit up, and hesitant steps turned into eager sprints towards the colorful array of comfort I had brought. One little girl, no older than 7, with a sparkle in her eyes that belied the bald head wrapped in a pale pink scarf, reached for a teddy bear knitted in hues of lavender and mint. The way her face transformed with a radiant smile, as if I had handed her the world, was a moment of pure magic. It was then I realized the true impact of my humble offerings. These weren't just toys and blankets. They were symbols of normalcy, of care, and of love in a place where such things can sometimes feel far away. I moved through the ward, each introduction to a new child a revelation. Their smiles, their laughter, even their shy thank yous, wove a tape of joy and gratitude that enveloped my heart. This wasn't just about giving away knitted items, it was about sharing moments of connection, of understanding, and of mutual support. Seeing their joy, feeling their hugs, and hearing their stories, I was reminded that while I set out to knit a layer of comfort into their lives, they, in turn, were stitching a profound layer of joy and purpose into mine. The joy of giving, as I learned that day, wasn't just about the act of handing over something you've made. It was about the exchange of warmth, the sharing of stories, and the knitting of lives together in those brief, beautiful moments. The laughter and happiness that filled the oncology ward was a potent reminder that sometimes, the simplest acts of kindness can weave the most meaningful tapestries in our lives. My journey with knitting through my cancer diagnosis did not only reconnect me to a sense of personal purpose but also gently nudged me toward an unexpected treasure, a vibrant, supportive community of fellow knitters. Each skein of yarn and every pattern shared wove us closer, creating a tapestry of camaraderie that stretched far beyond my cozy living room and into the hearts and homes of many. It all began one afternoon as I shared pictures of my latest project, a soft, cuddly elephant, on a social media platform for knitters. The responses were immediate and heartwarming, with messages of support pouring in not just for my craft but for my health journey as well. The magic unfolded further when I joined a local charity knitting group. Here, surrounded by clacking needles and colorful yarn, I found a circle of friends who understood the therapeutic power of our craft. We shared patterns, tips, and, most importantly, our stories. These gatherings became a source of strength, laughter, and inspiration. Our conversations danced from the best yarn for hospital-friendly toys to personal tales of triumph and struggle, knitting us together in a shared purpose. Together, we embarked on projects larger than any of us could have managed alone, knitting blankets, hats, and toys for local oncology wards. Each piece was a labor of love, a tangible manifestation of our shared commitment to spreading warmth and comfort. This community became my lifeline, providing a sense of belonging that was both grounding and uplifting. Our collective effort transcended the act of knitting. We were crafting a community of care, support, and resilience. This newfound family, bound not just by a love for knitting but by a shared understanding of life's fragility and strength, reminded me daily that no one has to face their battles alone. Through every stitch, we were not just creating, we were healing, together. Embarking on this journey, I found an unexpected source of strength in the rhythmic motion of my knitting needles. As I dedicated my time to creating toys and blankets for children in the oncology ward, a profound transformation unfolded within me. The focus required for each stitch, the selection of colors, and the envisioning of the joy each piece would bring, allowed me to momentarily transcend my physical discomfort. It was as if, with every loop and pull, I was knitting together my own spirit, reinforcing it against the onslaught of pain and uncertainty that cancer brings. The realization that each piece of my work could provide comfort to a child in need infused my days with a sense of purpose that had been dulled by my diagnosis. This wasn't merely a pastime, it was a mission, a vital part of my daily existence that gave me a reason to push through the toughest days. The act of giving, of focusing outward, shifted my perspective from my own suffering to the impact I could make on others' lives. This shift was not just emotionally uplifting but surprisingly healing. With every thank you, every smile, and every story shared, I felt a part of a larger narrative, one that wove through the struggles of others, offering threads of hope and resilience. The sense of purpose that knitting bestowed upon me became a powerful antidote to the physical and emotional toll of cancer treatment, reinforcing my belief in the healing power of engaging in meaningful, purposeful work. Navigating through my cancer diagnosis with the gentle click of knitting needles in hand, I've unraveled profound lessons intertwined with every stitch. This journey, marked by both personal turmoil and creative expression, taught me the resilience hidden within acts of creation. Each loop and pull of yarn revealed the extraordinary strength we possess when channeling our energies into acts of kindness and connection. I learned that compassion weaves the strongest fabric. By knitting for children in the oncology ward, I discovered the immense power of empathy, of putting oneself in another's shoes, and crafting something with the sole purpose of bringing them comfort. It's a reminder that our actions, no matter how small they may seem, have the capacity to touch lives and lighten burdens. Most importantly, I was taught the healing power of giving back. In every piece I knitted, I found pieces of myself mending back together, proving that in giving, we receive. It was a lesson in looking beyond my pain, in finding a purpose that transcended my diagnosis. This purpose did not cure my cancer, but it healed my spirit, giving me the strength to face each day with hope and determination. The threads of yarn in my hands became threads of connection, binding me to a community of fellow knitters, caregivers, and those brave young souls battling their own health challenges. This shared tapestry of experiences enriched my life in unexpected ways, teaching me that even in our darkest hours, we have the capacity to illuminate the lives of others. In knitting out her cancer diagnosis, I've woven a new narrative for myself, one stitched with resilience, compassion, and the enduring belief in the power of human connection and the healing it brings. As the sun rises on each new day, so does my resolve to face the uncertainties of my journey with cancer. With each twist and twirl of my knitting needles, I'm reminded that life, much like knitting, is filled with complex patterns and unexpected turns. My diagnosis, though daunting, has woven a new purpose into my life, enriching it with layers of meaning I never anticipated. The journey ahead is uncharted, filled with challenges and moments of resilience, but I am undeterred. My knitting has become more than a pastime, it's a beacon of hope, a vessel for my love and creativity to reach those who need it most. The smiles of children wrapped in the warmth of my blankets, the joy in their eyes when they clutch a knitted toy, these are the memories that fuel my spirit, igniting a flame of purpose that no illness can dim. With every stitch I create, I'm not only crafting comfort for others but also knitting a stronger, more resilient version of myself. The journey of my knitting needles, through loops and knots, mirrors my path through treatment and recovery, each piece a milestone, a testament to the strength found in the face of adversity. Looking forward, I see not just a battle with cancer, but a journey of transformation. A path paved with the love and warmth of each knitted stitch, leading not only to healing but to a legacy of kindness and compassion. As long as my hands can hold needles and my heart can dream up patterns, I will continue to knit, to give, and to hope, embracing whatever the future holds with a steadfast heart and an unbreakable spirit.